All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We are live. Welcome to Benchley Night. Welcome to Benchley Night from what has recently been the COVID castle, but is no longer the COVID castle. So what happened, ladies and gentlemen? Last week, the end of January, I was teaching in Scottsdale, Arizona, the Scottsdale Artist School, which is very nice, lovely place. And at the Scottsdale Artist School, I had 13 students. I should have known 13, the magic number. And one of my students requested a lot of individual time, needing to be taught how to do rigging and certain brushwork, which I rather ineffectually attempted to work with her on. But it was a lot of like sitting very close to one another, and I would say helpful things like breathe. In retrospect, that might not have been the wisest decision I've ever made, because she breathed and I breathed, and then I got home, and by Saturday night when I got home, I was not feeling so good. And then I tested negative, and then Sunday night I tested positive. And then, ladies and gentlemen, basically I slept. A friend of mine, Patrick LeBlanc, had gotten COVID last year, and he said his feeling with it was he got some of the best nights of sleep that he's gotten in years. And I basically had that reaction. Basically, I don't really remember much of Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, because I was basically sleeping about 18 to 20 hours a day. But I gotta say, I have been so well taken care of by my neighbors. Kelly Milliken, my next door neighbor, who had a very, very, very severe case of COVID, adopted the not on my watch strategy and inundated me with medicines and meals and soups and oranges and seltzers. And my assistant, Charlene Peavy, she was at the beck and call. She has taken care of Corduroy, Studio Cat Corduroy all week. Other neighbors have dropped things off. I've been so lucky. Kathleen Kavatsky, Rick Kavatsky. I can't remember everybody, and I'm going to feel bad about it when I get done with this, but I feel very, very, very lucky. And I started testing negative. I guess it was Friday. Friday. And then Saturday was the Dar Williams concert at the Opera House, and Betty Sue and I had talked about it, and the last thing that one wants to do is A, infect 400 people, B, infect one's former client and beloved, 3, or C, one does not want to overdo it and reinfect oneself. So I stayed home last night. But the first Ray Masuko concert series at the Bellows Falls Opera House with Dar Williams and Chris Matthews was a rousing success. The production team of Ezra Veach, Meredy Serebrov, Patrick LeBlanc, Sean Roberts at the Opera House. Hey, they kicked butt, ladies and gentlemen. Dan Richardson, sound man extraordinaire. We're in great shape. Anyway, I plan to rejoin, although very, taking my time, to rejoin the world tomorrow. I will start taking care of Studio Cat Corduroy again, and we will take it from there. Anyway, so enough blathering. I'm in good shape. Thank you for all your expressions of concern. Thank you for everyone who has stopped by with food and gifts. It's appreciated. So it is the time of year. It is the time of year, ladies and gentlemen, where I have been reading My Life in Hard Times by James Thurber. And so I thought it would be nice to start that this week with the preface, but that's fairly short. So I thought we'd have two little pieces. One Robert Benchley, and then the preface to James Thurber. So tonight's liberal snowplowing do-gooder beneficiary is, of course, World Central Kitchen. World Central Kitchen that does so much. As Warren Zevon said, enjoy every sandwich. World Central Kitchen makes sure people get sandwiches. And we have a few people to thank, ladies and gentlemen. We have to thank the great Martha Rowley, who would really appreciate that fact that we just mentioned Warren Zevon. And he's up for election at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. Ms. Martha Rowley. Mr. Rick Gavotsky, who has led me into Facebook jail. I'll tell the story of my Facebook jail experience next week, maybe. Mr. Rick Gavotsky. The always enigmatic Naughty Moose. Naughty Moose, thank you. Out there in St. Louis, Missouri, the great Terry Hudson. Out there in Cincinnati, Ohio, the phlegmatic J.T. Mayer. Out there in Fulton, Missouri, where the cavalcade of sheep has started, the lambs are a-lambin', Ms. Carol Fulkerson. Out there in Omaha, Nebraska, we have a heartland following, ladies and gentlemen. We have a heartland following here at Benchley Night. Out there in Omaha, Nebraska, Mr. John Wilhelm. And out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the corn grows high. I guess it doesn't. But where the corn grows high, out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, my very, 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 very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, and his wonderful wife, Elise. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much. Lost Youth by Robert Benchley. Just to show how things can go on under one's very nose without one being aware of them, I found that I was in Worcester, Massachusetts, when the first giraffe ever to be brought to the United States was first shown on the Worcester Common. And now is the first time I ever knew of it. A giraffe is not an animal that one sees for the first time without looking twice. A giraffe, no matter how you look at it, is out of the ordinary. And the first giraffe ever to be seen in the United States must have made more of an impression on Worcester Common than just an ordinary four-footed friend pattering along. Worcester is not as blasé as all that. Of course, I was only 3 years old at the time, but a child 3 years old has ears. I knew the words to ta ra 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 boom da. I surely could have been trusted with the information that there was a giraffe down on the common, especially when no one had ever seen a giraffe before. I always knew my father was a phlegmatic man, but I did not realize that he was as phlegmatic as that. His office was in the city hall, which backed right up on the commons. And from his window, he certainly could have seen that something was up. I can hardly believe that when he came home to dinner and my mother asked him, "What was the news downtown today?" he said, "Oh, nothing much. There was an animal out on the common with a neck that reached up into the trees and all covered over with spots. A giraffe, I think they said. What's for dinner tonight?" Why wasn't I taken down to see it? I was taken to watch fireworks on the 4th of July, and I hated it. I was taken to the circus, and all that the circus has to offer are some old elephants and tigers that everybody has seen before. But they held out on me when a real attraction came to town. Maybe they thought it would be over my head, and so help me, I did not mean to write that way. However, you notice that I am letting it stand. It is very lucky that I did not happen to be out for a stroll by myself and discover that giraffe without any warning. Still, I suppose at the age of 3, nothing surprises one. But I bet there was many a man in Worcester who went on the wagon for good that day in 1893. The same news story that broke the news to me that I had missed the first giraffe in 1893 stated that the first elephant was brought to this country in 1796 by Captain Jacob Crowningshield of Salem, Massachusetts. Massachusetts seems to have gone in for frightening folks. However little impression the first giraffe may have made on Worcester or my father, I wouldn't want to have been in Salem on that night when the first elephant put in an appearance. 3 years old or not, I bet I would have remembered that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is our Robert Benchley for tonight. I thought that was a nice lead-in to James Thurber, because it's one of the few Benchleys where he's really kind of reminiscing about his own childhood. Now, I think by now, or my hope is that you guys are all getting to be about where I am, in that some lines in James Thurber are getting to be very, very, very familiar. Some lines in My Life in Hard Times. That, to me, being read to a story that one loves, is a wonderful experience. So perhaps you find this repetitive. I find it comforting, yet quietly exhilarating. Preface to a Life, the introduction to My Life in Hard Times by James Thurber. Benvenuto Cellini said that a man should be at least 40 years old before he undertakes so fine an enterprise as that of setting down the story of his life. He said also that an autobiographer should have accomplished something of excellence. Nowadays, nobody who has a typewriter pays any attention to the old master's quaint rules. I myself have accomplished nothing of excellence except a remarkable, and to some of my friends, unaccountable expertise in hitting empty ginger ale bottles with small rocks at a distance of 30 paces. Moreover, I am not yet 40 years old, but the grim date moves toward me apace. My legs are beginning to go, things blur before my eyes, and the faces of the rose-lipped maidens that I knew in my 20s are as misty as dreams. At 40, my faculties may have closed up like flowers at evening, leaving me unable to write my memoirs with a fitting and discreet inaccuracy, or, having written them, unable to carry them to the publishers. A writer verging into the middle years lives in dread of losing his way to the publishing house and wandering down to the Bowery or the Battery, there to disappear like Ambrose Bierce. He has sometimes also the kindred dread of turning a sudden corner and meeting himself sauntering along in the opposite direction. I have known writers at this dangerous and tricky age to phone their homes from their offices, or to their offices from their homes, ask for themselves in a low tone, and then, having fortunately discovered that they were out, to collapse in hard breathing relief. This is particularly true of writers of light pieces running from 1,000 to 2,000 words. The notion that such persons are gay of heart and carefree is curiously untrue. They lead, as a matter of fact, an existence of jumpiness and apprehension. They sit on the edge of the chair of literature. In the house of life, they have the feeling that they have never taken off their overcoats. Afraid of losing themselves in the larger flight of the 2-volume novel, or even the 1-volume novel, they stick to short accounts of their misadventures because they never get so deep into them that they feel that they can possibly get out. This type of writing is not a joyous form of self-expression, but the manifestation of a twitchiness, at once cosmic and mundane. Authors of such pieces have, nobody knows why, a genius for getting into minor difficulties. They walk into the wrong apartments. They drink furniture polish for stomach bitters. They drive their cars into the prized tulip beds of haughty neighbors. They playfully slap gangsters, mistaking them for old school chums. To call such persons humorists, a loose-fitting and ugly word, is to miss the nature of their dilemma and the dilemma of their nature. The little wheels of their invention are set in motion by the damp hand of melancholy. Such a writer moves about restlessly wherever he goes, ready to get the hell out at the drop of a pie pan or the lift of a skirt. His gestures are the ludicrous reflexes of the maladjusted. His repose is the momentary inertia of the nonplussed. He pulls the blinds against the morning and creeps into the smoky corners at night. He talks largely about small matters and smallly about great affairs. His ears are shut to the ominous rumblings of the dynasties of the world moving toward a cloudier chaos than ever before. But he hears with an acute perception the startling sounds that rabbits make, twisting in the bushes along a country road at night. And a cold chill comes upon him when the comic supplement of a Sunday newspaper blows unexpectedly out of an areaway and envelops his knees. He can sleep while the Commonwealth crumbles, but a strange sound in the pantry at 3 a.m. will strike terror into his stomach. He is not afraid or much aware of the menaces of empire, but he keeps looking behind him as he walks along darkening streets, out of the fear that he is being softly followed by little men padding along in single file, about 1.5 feet high, large-eyed and whiskered. It is difficult for such a person to conform to what Ford Madox Ford, in his book of recollections, is called the sole reason for writing one's memoirs, namely, to paint a picture of one's time. Your short piece writer's time is not Walter Lippmann's time. Is not Walter Lippmann's time, or Stuart Chase's time, Professor Einstein's time. It is his own personal time, circumscribed by the short boundaries of his pain and his embarrassment, in which what happens to his digestion, or the rear axle of his car, or the confused flow of his relationships with 6 or 8 persons and 2 or 3 buildings, is of greater importance than what goes on in the nation or in the universe. He knows vaguely that the nation is not much good anymore. He has read that the crust of the earth is shrinking alarmingly, and that the universe is growing steadily colder. But he does not believe that any of the 3 is in half as bad a shape as he is. Enormous strides are made in star measurement, theoretical economics, and the manufacture of bombing planes, but he usually does not find out about them until he picks up an old copy of Time on a picnic grounds or in the summer house of a friend. He is aware that billions of dollars are stolen every year by bankers and by politicians. and that thousands of people are out of work, but these conditions do not worry him as a tenth as much as the conviction that he has wasted 3 months on a stupid psychoanalyst, or the suspicion that a piece he has been working on for 2 long days was done much better and probably much quicker by Robert Benchley in 1924. The time of such a writer, then, is hardly worth reading about if the reader wishes to find out what was going on in the world while the writer in question was alive at what might be laughingly called his best. All that the reader is going to find out is what happened to the writer. The compensation, I suppose, must lie in the comforting feeling that one has had, after all, a pretty sensible and peaceful life by comparison. It is unfortunate, however, that even a well-ordered life cannot lead anybody safely around the inevitable doom that waits in the skies. As F. Hopkinton Smith long ago pointed out, the claw of the sea puss gets us all in the end. James Thurber, Sandy Hook, Connecticut, September 25th, 1933. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get ready then for the next 6 or 8 or however many weeks of My Life and Hard Times by James Thurber. Now, you all take good care out there. You all take good care and wear masks when you are showing people how to do rigging. I've learned that now. I've learned that. And I also just want to say my beloved Betty Sue managed to escape getting the plague, which is great. She is now down in Texas, where, of course, she lost power for the last 4 days, whatever, with the ice storm there. But she's got power back now. Anyway, you take good care, and we'll see you next Sunday. Okay? Bye-bye.